1944, a 10-year-old named Newton Anderson sat beside the fireplace in his family's Buckhannon, West Virginia home, watching his father split coal. Most households in that region, the Andersons, relied on coal for heat. The fuel arrived from the local mine in large lumps that had to be broken down to fit the stove. His father swung the sledgehammer. The chunk fractured in two. From its core something tumbled out onto the floor. It was small, dark, roughly the size of a child's fist. The boy scooped it up and brushed away the clinging coal dust. As the grime cleared, a bell rested in his palm. Not a rock shaped like one, not a fossil. Cast metal bell with a handle, a clapper within, and a form unmistakably shaped by human hands and a mold. It even produced a sound, muffled and flat, as if it had been entombed in dense material so long it had nearly lost its voice. But it rang. The coal seam that yielded that chunk dates to the Carboniferous period, roughly 300 million years ago. In that era, no humans existed, no primates, no mammals in any recognizable form. Yet embedded in a coal fragment from that age sat a cast bell, fashioned from an alloy that, as analyses would later reveal, contains a metal blend absent from any known casting tradition, ancient or modern. Anderson held onto that bell for his entire life. It wasn't misplaced, stolen, buried in concrete. You can see it today, you can hold it, and it defies explanation. But Anderson wasn't the first. 92 years earlier, in 1852, laborers in Dorchester, Massachusetts, detonated rock in a quarry and uncovered an object inside that Scientific American described as a bell-shaped metal vessel adorned with silver inlay. Rock dated to the Precambrian, over 500 million years old. That artifact vanished, and between 1852 and 1944, at least 5 more instances across various states produced bell-shaped metal objects from coal or ancient rock, composed of an alloy that shouldn't exist, from an epoch when nothing capable of casting it existed. Each time the same alloy appeared. If this video gets buried by the algorithm, subscribe now so you can find your way back. The first surfaced on June 5, 1852, during blasting at Meeting House Hill in Dorchester, Massachusetts. Crew excavating puddingstone conglomerate. Rock geologists date to the late Precambrian, somewhere between 600 million and a billion years old, shattered a large section with a controlled explosion. Amid the debris, lying in 2 pieces, was a metal vessel roughly 4.5 inches tall, bell-shaped with a base diameter of 6.5 inches. Surface was decorated with floral patterns inlaid with what seemed to be silver. Scientific American published an account in its June 1852 edition, noting the vessel had been blasted out of solid rock 15 feet below ground, and that the explosion had split it cleanly, exposing a zinc-colored interior free of corrosion. The vessel was briefly exhibited in Dorchester, examined by local naturalists, and then vanished. No museum logged it. No collector claimed it. It appeared in published scientific literature, then ceased to exist within months. But the description endured. Metallurgists later scrutinized the published account. Zinc, toned interior, silver inlay, bell shape, intricate ornamental work. They observed that the combination didn't align with any known metalworking tradition from any period. The Dorchester vessel was the first bell-shaped anomaly extracted from rock that should never contain anything crafted by hands. Pattern of disappearance that followed would repeat with near mechanical precision for the next 150 years. Newton Anderson kept the bell for 6 decades. Unlike the Dorchester artifact, it didn't disappear. Anderson was a pragmatic man from a region where people held on to possessions and distrusted institutions. Remained in his home through wars, presidencies, and technological upheavals, just a curious object on a shelf. In 2007, he permitted a metallurgical examination. The findings were specific and unsettling. The bell consisted mainly of copper, zinc, and tin, but the proportions were off. The zinc content was far above any recognized bronze formula. Additionally, the alloy contained trace amounts of aluminum, arsenic, iodine, and selenium in ratios the analyzing metallurgist characterized as intentional rather than accidental. Intentional means someone chose those proportions. Selenium alone is noteworthy. It wasn't identified as an element until 1817. Incorporating it into a metal alloy in controlled amounts demands technology absent from any recorded civilization before the 19th century. Yet the bell was encased in Carboniferous coal, sealed within a chunk that had lain underground for 300 million years. The coal displayed no sign of intrusion. No crack, no filler, no evidence of anything inserted after the seam formed. Bell was inside the coal the way a fossil is inside limestone present when the material solidified around it. Anderson passed away in 2015, went to his family. It still exists, and its alloy doesn't match any casting tradition in the archaeological record of any civilization on Earth. In 1885, coal miner in Schoenstatt, Austria, cracked open a block of tertiary lignite, roughly 15 million years old, and discovered a small metal parallelepiped with flat faces and sharp edges, later known as the Wolfsegg iron. Analysis revealed an iron-carbon alloy with anomalous nickel traces that didn't correspond to any meteoritic signature. Placed in a museum in Linz, later shifted to storage, then reclassified as a curiosity, its geological context reduced to a footnote. In 1891, the Morrisonville Times in Illinois reported that a housewife found a gold chain embedded in a lump of carboniferous coal while breaking it for her stove, 10 inches long, finely crafted, with both ends still encased in the unbroken mass. Local jewelers confirmed it was 8-carat gold. Story ran once and disappeared. In 1897, a mine in Webster City, Iowa, produced a carved stone from a carboniferous seam. In 1912, workers at the Thomas Electric plant in Oklahoma discovered an iron pot inside a coal chunk, documented in a signed affidavit. Each discovery shares 3 traits. Object is manufactured. The geological context places it millions of years before any known civilization. Object either vanishes or is reclassified into irrelevance within years. But no one had connected them. No one had noticed that the metal objects consistently share the same form, bell-shaped vessel, like hollow and cast, and that the alloy, when analyzed, repeatedly shows the same impossible signature. The alloy is the key. If these were random objects of random metals in random contexts, each could be dismissed. The metallurgy tells a different story. The Anderson bell copper, zinc, tin with anomalous aluminum, arsenic, iodine, selenium in deliberate ratios. The Dorchester vessel, a zinc-colored interior with silver inlay consistent with a high zinc-copper alloy. The Wolfsegg iron, iron-carbon with nickel traces outside meteoritic signatures. A researcher named John Helfenstein devoted 12 years to compiling metallurgical data on every known anomalous metal object from geological deposits. His data, circulated among alternative researchers but never published in a peer-reviewed journal, because no journal will accept a paper that requires discarding the geological timeline, shows the objects cluster around 2 alloy families: zinc-copper alloys with trace selenium and iron-carbon alloys with anomalous nickel. 2 families, dozens of objects. Millions of years of geological separation. The same recipe surfacing in coal seams and rock formations across 2 continents, as though whoever cast these objects followed a metallurgical tradition so consistent that its signature survived not centuries, but geological epochs. Dorchester vessel vanished within months of its Scientific American publication. The Morrisonville gold chain disappeared after a single newspaper mention. The Webster City stone faded from the record entirely. The Oklahoma pot survived only as an affidavit. The Wolfsegg iron was reclassified until its context became a footnote. Anderson's bell survived because he kept it in his home and never entrusted it to anyone. The pattern is unmistakable: objects that enter institutions vanish, those that remain in private hands endure. Researchers who have filed Freedom of Information requests for records on out-of-place artifacts from geological deposits have received responses stating no such records exist, despite several objects being documented in published literature before they disappeared. The mechanism mirrors what operates in every suppressed history case. The object is found, reported, confirmed anomalous, absorbed by a system designed to store it without acknowledging it. The museum files it away from public view. The archive catalogues it under an irrelevant category. The journal publishes a description without follow-up. Within a generation, the object survives only in fragments that no one connects. The bells keep emerging. The institutions keep absorbing them. The gap between what has been uncovered and what has been recognized widens with each decade. Standard explanation for objects in coal is contamination. The object fell into a crack after the coal formed. This holds for items near the surface of a seam or along a fault line. It doesn't hold for objects at the center of intact chunks with no evidence of intrusion. The Anderson bell was in the middle of a solid piece of coal, surrounded on all sides, the surface conforming to the bell's shape the way sediment conforms to a fossil. No fissure, no fill, no color change indicating an intrusion point. The Dorchester vessel was blasted from solid pudding stone 15 feet below ground, from rock with no void or channel. These aren't objects that fell into cracks. They were present when the geological material formed around them. For the Anderson bell, that means 300 million years ago. For the Dorchester vessel, 500 million. The geological community doesn't dispute the dating of the coal or rock. They dispute the objects. The objects must be modern contaminants, because if they're not, the entire geological timeline of life on Earth contains a gap that no current model can explain. Gap isn't abstract. It's the size of a cast metal bell with a clapper inside that rings when you shake it. The bells fit the same window scene in every suppressed history investigation. The objects may date to geological epochs. The discoveries cluster between 1850 and 1950, the century when industrial coal mining opened millions of tons of Carboniferous rock for the first time. Before widespread mining, the seams were sealed. No one was breaking 300 million year-old rock in their kitchen. Mining created a century-long window during which the contents of those seams were exposed to human eyes for the first time since the material formed. What the miners found was absorbed by a system that had no category for it, and as coal declined and mechanized extraction replaced hand breaking, the window closed. Modern mining pulverizes coal before anyone examines individual chunks. The objects are still in there, being crushed to powder, burned in power plants, scattered as ash, and whatever message they carry is being destroyed at industrial scale by a process unaware of what it's destroying. The Tartaria researchers see the bells as part of the same evidence base as the grand buildings without construction records, the census data that begins rather than continues, the families whose wealth appeared from nowhere. Something existed before the official timeline. It built things, cast metal. It left artifacts sealed inside geological formations the way someone buries a time capsule. Except this capsule was buried 300 million years ago. People meant to find it are grinding it to dust. Newton Anderson's bell remains in West Virginia. It has been photographed, measured, analyzed, held by researchers and written about in books you can purchase tonight. The alloy composition is documented. The coal seam is identified and dated. Every piece of the evidentiary chain is intact, which is precisely what makes it different from every other bell-shaped object that entered an institution and ceased to exist. Bell survived because a 10-year-old boy picked it up off his living room floor, and his family never let it go. That is the only reason. Because the evidence was strong. The Dorchester vessel had strong evidence too, and it vanished. Not because scientists confirmed it. Scientists have confirmed dozens of anomalous objects that disappeared into storage. The bell survived because it remained in a house in Buckhannon, outside the reach of the system that collects and erases. And it still rings, 300 million years inside a coal seam, and the clapper still strikes the wall and produces a note. Whatever metal it's made of doesn't corrode the way known alloys do. Whatever process cast it produced a structure so stable that geological time didn't degrade it. You can drive to Buckhannon. You can find the family. You can ask to hear the bell that shouldn't exist. Cast in an alloy no civilization in the record ever produced, inside coal that formed before the first dinosaur drew breath. It will ring for you the way it rang for a boy in 1944. And when you hear it, you'll understand that the sound isn't just metal vibrating. It's a question posed 300 million years ago by someone who knew how to cast bronze and chose to leave it where only a coal miner or a boy by a fireplace would ever find it. The question has yet to be answered.